Good evening, Brooklyn North. Welcome to the New York City Police Reform and Reinvention Collaborative. My name is Inspector Isa Abbasi. I'm the commanding officer of the Office of Collaborative Policing. Before we begin this evening's program, I'd like to introduce the distinguished members of our dais, starting with our police commissioner, the Honorable Dermot Shea. Commanding officer of the Office of the First Deputy Commissioner, Assistant Chief Matthew Pontillo. CEO of the Federation of Protestant Welfare Agencies, Ms. Jennifer Jones Austin. Our Chief of Collaborative Policing, Chief Juanita Holmes, who will be joining us a little later in the program. And the Commanding Officer of Patrol Bureau Brooklyn North, Assistant Chief Judith Harrison. From the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, Ms. Jamila Pringle-Fines. Last and certainly not least, our co-facilitator for this evening and Director of People and Culture for the Center for Court Innovation, Ms. Ife Charles. We will now hear a few words from our Police Commissioner.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Brooklyn. Thank you for inviting us and allowing us to take part in this evening with you. It is our distinct pleasure to be here, and it is also our wish that we have an open dialogue and hear from you, and that's what tonight is all about. So I have members of my staff with me here, and I look forward to hearing an open discussion about how we move forward together, good and bad. And then we'll close with, at the end of the night, I'll close with some additional statements. But thank you for being here.
So why are we here this evening? This is the first phase in a multi-phase engagement strategy undertaken by the City of New York to examine police reform in New York City. I'd like everybody to understand that there will be many more discussions with many more community stakeholders going forward, including diverse groups such as our Cure Violence individuals, as well as youth in our communities, business improvement districts, and many other stakeholders who have shown an interest in providing input into reforming the New York City Police Department. Tonight's session will be approximately 2 hours in length. We will have a short presentation, which we have currently started, which will last about 10 minutes, which will be followed by about a 1 hour and 15-minute question and answer period with some closing remarks by Police Commissioner Shea. What we'd like for you tonight is to listen with compassion. You're under no obligation to speak, but we do encourage you to voice your input. We're here to listen to you. We're here to understand what your needs are, and we're here to take your feedback and turn it into the NYPD providing services to our community in the way our community expects. It's okay to disagree, but we want everyone to respect one another's opinions and realize that we all have our own personal stories and we come from different places, and we have to work together to achieve our ultimate goal, which is to police New York City the way New York City wants to be policed. During tonight, we are broadcasting as well as Facebook Live. If you're tuning in on Zoom right now, please monitor your chat feed. Use the chat feature for previews of upcoming discussions, questions, and input your questions and comments so that our facilitators can read them or call on you to speak on a particular topic. If you're on Facebook Live, please utilize the comment box for previews of upcoming discussion questions, and you can also provide some input to the questions and comments that we are putting out on Facebook Live. After tonight's session, you can watch a full-length video of this event on the NYPD YouTube channel as well as our Facebook page. We're also asking that you provide your critical feedback via a survey, and the link can be found on nyc.gov/NYPD/reform. Some of the things we'll be discussing tonight are the things that we have found most relevant to you, our audience. Ultimately, you, our customer, the customer that we are here to provide safety in the way that you deem most appropriate. Those issues are, what does safety mean to you? Do you feel safe in your neighborhood? Tell us about the quality of your life. What does justice mean to you? These are just some of the topics that we hope to be addressing tonight. And again, we're here to listen to you, to hear you, and for you to tell us what these things mean. Part of what we're talking about tonight falls under, in my mind, the word evolution. The NYPD is constantly evolving. And in that evolution, what we've done in recent years has been to establish a system that we call neighborhood policing. Neighborhood policing provides over 1,000 NCOs into the precincts and housing developments of our city. However, we've invested 3 times that in terms of steady sectors and personnel. So what does that mean to you? That means that we've invested thousands of people into New York City to give consistent presence in the same geographic areas every day, to develop relationships with our community, to focus on community issues. And that focus has allowed us to continue to evolve into what we call precision policing. And our police commissioner was one of the driving forces behind that term and that philosophy in our department. What does that mean? That means leveraging these relationships that we've developed over the years through neighborhood policing to know who are the very small percentage of bad actors in our community that are driving crime, and being able to engage that very small minority of people that are inflicting harm on their communities. And how do we know that it works? Because in the 10 years leading up to 2020, we saw crime decrease dramatically year over year. At the same time, arrests declined 49% since 2010, and we've issued 83% fewer criminal court summonses in that time period. So how can crime go down if those metrics go down as well? It seems counterintuitive. The way that happens is that we got better. Fast forward to 2020, Police Commissioner Shea made it a top priority for the NYPD to re-examine its youth strategy. What does that mean? That means that we've renewed our commitment to proactively reach youth at risk, engage them in activities, constructive activities, and divert them from paths that may lead to criminal engagement later on in their life. Also, in 2020, Commissioner Shea appointed Chief Juanita Holmes as the Chief of Collaborative Policing. Now, the Office of Collaborative Policing, which I'm the commanding officer under Chief Holmes, does a variety of things for the people of New York. Most importantly, we manage community, government, and advocate relationships so that we're providing the best service possible to the people in our community. We're improving access to services as well. We also are charged with creating creative crime reduction strategies and increasing non-enforcement options to our officers, because that's what the people of our city demand. In addition, it's very important to us to understand what you, our customer, demands of us. So how do we do that? We want your input. We want your feedback. We encourage you to attend build-the-block meetings, precinct council meetings, and we've even started a customer service program, and we will be distributing surveys citywide to continue to gauge how we're doing in New York City. An important part of what we've discovered is that we need to regain and further develop trust in our communities, as well as need to recruit people from our community to serve as police officers. This has become even more important in this new age of policing. We must encourage our youth to serve their community as members of the NYPD, providing the opportunity to advance to leadership positions and change our department from the inside. I will now hand the discussion over to Assistant Chief Pontillo, who will discuss how the NYPD goes about training its officers.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you again for joining us this evening and allowing us to be with you this evening. Just want to touch on training. And I'm going to touch on a few topics tonight and a few significant innovations that the NYPD has undertaken over the last 6 or 7 years. And this is not to suggest by any means that we think our work is done, either generally or in these particular areas, but rather contrary, we recognize that there's still a great deal of work to be done. And some of the things I'm going to highlight, understand that it's not the NYPD doing a lot of this alone. A lot of these things that we were able to accomplish were really with the help and the input of community and other stakeholders. And at the end of the day, you know, Inspector Abbasi talked about an evolution. This is part of that evolution. So all the things that we do, it's with an eye towards continuous improvement. Or in other words, understanding that our work is never done and we always have to work to be better. So I cannot overstate the value of training. Training is absolutely critical to us. And it's not just for new recruits. So certainly when we hire a new class of police academy recruits, they undergo 6 months of training, but that really only gets them ready for day one. You know, what happens on day 2 or in year 10 is really supported by continuous training throughout their career, right? So we take the view that training is really a career-long process of professional development. We need to continually reinforce the skills that we give our cops so that they can do their job the right way. And a lot of the things we teach are perishable, right? Think about in your own life, your own experiences. At one time, you know, maybe you learned how to do something, and then you went back to it years later and you kind of forgot, like, oh, how do I do this again? I'm always on YouTube looking for a video on how to rebuild a carburetor or make a dovetail joint to make a piece of furniture, you know, because I forgot how to do it, right? So I have to go back and teach myself again. Police officers, no different, right? We learn a lot of skills, things that we don't use all that often. We really have to keep refreshing and keep practicing so that it becomes second nature. So, you know, we understand that, and we've expanded our commitment to training. So when I was a young cop, maybe we had about 3 days of training a year. You know, now our officers go through 10 or more days of training each year. And we've also developed an online distance learning platform. So smartphones are not uncommon. Everybody's got one. We all use them. However, in the hands of police officers, it becomes a very, very powerful tool. So all of our officers have smartphones. We're able to push out information and training content to them, you know, instantaneously, 24/7 as needed. Since we began doing this, we've rolled out about 100,000 hours of content through videos. So it's very, very powerful, very useful. And just some of the key courses that we've put online or done in person over the last few years include implicit bias, de-escalation, physical tactics, critical decision-making, and crisis intervention training, to name a few. Perhaps the most critical decision a police officer can ever make is the decision to use force. Now, given the nature of police work and crime fighting, sometimes it is necessary. However, through policies and training and oversight and the use of alternatives, it's our goal to make that as infrequent as possible. And I think this chart over here, this blue bar chart over here on the right, really demonstrates, again, that evolution that Inspector Abbasi mentioned. In 1972, we had 994 police-involved shootings in New York City in that year. And that was with a much smaller police force in a city of about 7 million people. Fast forward to today, so far in 2020, we've had 29 officer-involved shootings. And only 15 of those were adversarial, meaning between a police officer and a civilian in some type of adversarial encounter. In 2016, we revised our use of force policy, and for the first time, we had a comprehensive policy that included thorough reporting and data collection, and also an investigation and review of every use of force by a supervisor or an investigative unit. And all of that data that we've been collecting about use of force is available on the NYPD website. So stop, question, and frisk. I don't need to highlight to anybody here or anybody anywhere in the city that stop and question was something that was overused for a long period of time and led to a rather significant erosion of trust in the city between police and community. It was intended as a crime-fighting tool, but it did a lot of damage to relationships, and we recognize that. And because of that, over the last several years, we've been working very, very hard to reduce stops and rebuild trust. And we can see the numbers have come down quite significantly, and that's important, but that's not the end of the work. And then interestingly, as stops declined during that same time period, major felony crime also declined. So I think that proves, again, what Inspector Abbasi referred to earlier as precision policing, that it in fact works. That if we focus on the small number of people who are responsible for crime in the city instead of looking at a geographical area where crime is occurring, we can be much more effective, and certainly with community cooperation and collaboration, that all becomes possible. So of course, discipline is of great concern to the public. We understand that, and we've taken a number of steps in recent years to address that. So, you know, part of the reason that I think discipline has been questioned, whether or not it's even used or it's effective in the NYPD, is because for decades it has been shrouded in mystery. Right? We had state law that prevented us from releasing information about discipline and disciplinary proceedings in the department. In 2018, we brought in an outside panel of experts to take a look at discipline in the NYPD. And the good news there, they released their report in early 2019, was that they found that the disciplinary system was generally robust and fair in the NYPD, but that it lacked transparency. And they said that really set us back because people couldn't see what was actually occurring. And they also issued 13 recommendations in their report to improve the system, and we have adopted all of those recommendations. Now, recently, a few months ago, the state law was changed. So now we can release more disciplinary records, and we're in the process of doing that. We've put discipline data on our website going back to 2016, and we're in the process of developing a dashboard that will be available on the website where people can find that information about complaints and discipline in the NYPD. Also, back in the end of August, we published draft penalty guidelines. So people always ask or are curious about, hey, if an officer commits some infraction or engages in misconduct, what can the public expect in terms of a penalty? Like, how is that handled? So we drafted guidelines that demonstrate what the penalties are for different acts of misconduct and some of the considerations that go into that. We had that posted online for 30 days for a public comment period. We received a lot of online comments as well as letters and other papers. We're now going through all that. Based upon the feedback we got from the public, we are making changes, and we expect that we will publish the final version in January. Now, when I say final, it doesn't mean final forever. It just means the version that's effective in January. We expect, again, it will be an evolution. It'll be a living document. And we will continually evaluate its effectiveness, and if we need to make changes over time, we certainly will. Mentioned transparency a couple of times. We know that's very important. A lot of what the police department does is not always readily apparent to the public, so we've been working to make more information more readily available. We've had some data on our websites for years. Crime data, stop, question, and frisk data, force data, like I said, since 2016. But it isn't necessarily in a very user-friendly format, right? So we have a lot of tables, and while it may be good for researchers who want to download the data and examine it, for the average person going online trying to figure out what's going on in the NYPD, it wasn't very interactive or user-friendly. So we're changing all that. We're in the process now of developing these dashboards that hopefully the customer will have a much better experience going online, looking at this, and you'll be able to learn more about what's going on in the department. So right now we have CompStat 2.0, which has crime information, and then most recently the demographics dashboard, which provides information about the demographics of the NYPD, and then the hate crimes dashboard. And we have more dashboards coming online dealing with discipline and use of force in the near future. So the NYPD has the largest deployment of body-worn cameras in the country. To date, we have over 25,000 police officers and supervisors in the field equipped with body-worn cameras. Since we first began rolling them out in 2017, we have recorded over 13 million interactions between police and the public. And we're currently adding about 130,000 new videos each week. And those videos are invaluable. We use them in investigations. They've become very useful in civilian complaints and also for review by supervisors. So we're having our supervisors continually review body-worn camera video so they can look at the performance of the people who work for them and then make any corrections if necessary. And we're also auditing the use of body cameras to make sure that they're being used appropriately. And we've been putting out body-worn camera video from critical incidents for some time now. So in particular, officer-involved shootings. So the NYPD we have our own YouTube channel, and on that YouTube channel, we have a number of videos, including the body camera videos from these critical incidents. There was a period of time, just one caveat to this, there was a period of time where there was a court order that prohibited us from releasing body camera video, so for a while we couldn't do it, but then as of last September, we've been putting these videos out on a regular basis, and we've started going backwards, putting out videos from incidents that occurred during the period of that injunction. And then finally, we need to look internally with everything else that we do. So, we recognize that if we're going to provide quality police service to the public, we have to look inside and listen to and address the needs of our people. And one way we're engaging our employees, we've been holding a series of forums on race and social justice. These sessions have been very, very powerful and emotional, and the discussions have been great, and they're giving us great ideas on how to make the department more inclusive and more equitable. We're also supporting the health needs of our employees, and some of the ways we're doing that is through a peer support program, where members of the police department have peer counselors available who they can go to for some guidance and referrals to other resources as needed. And the whole idea is to improve resilience and also address the stress and the trauma that can come along with being a police officer. At this point, I'll turn it over to Chief Holmes, and happy to answer any questions during the Q&A. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chief Pontillo. Chief Holmes will now turn the conversation over to our facilitators for the evening.
You want me to turn it over to the facilitators?
Would you like to turn the conversation over to our facilitators, Chief?
I only want to turn it over first of all, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Chief Juanita Holmes, Chief of Collaborative Policing. So I apologize for my tardiness. I normally open the meeting. But with that being said, did we touch on tonight's agenda and everything else? Okay, so without further ado, I will turn it over to our facilitators, Jennifer Jones and Miss Aoife Charles. Thank you.
Shea Charles.
To reinvent the NYPD to make
It's good seeing a lot of familiar faces. Hey. I've been a part of this community for a very long time. For some of you guys have known me for years. I'm only 21, but I've been doing this work for close to 30 years in the community. And I stand here as Faye Charles, Director of People and Culture, overseeing the diversity, equity, and inclusion work for the Center for Port Innovation that runs a couple of community projects out here, such as the BCJC, MAP, and NSI. But I'm also a community girl growing up in Brooklyn, and I haven't always gotten along with NYPD. I've always been challenging and have been voices about when they're doing things right and doing things that are not favorable for us. And I am allow and just hear from everyone to speak in your truth. And I think I said that to you earlier. This is an opportunity for folks to speak in their truth. We have folks both present here, and we have close to 400 to 600 folks on Zoom that we're also going to give them an opportunity to speak. Is that fair? We good? All right.
So now, wait, before we get started, how many of us? There are about 20, 25 of you. We want to hear from you, and then she just mentioned that there are about 400, somewhere between 400 and 600 people on Zoom. There is no way in the world that we're going to get to hear from everybody. Even if we gave everybody a minute, it wouldn't happen. We need you, for those of you on Zoom, and for those of you who are here with us this evening, to keep your remarks to no more than 2 minutes. And I'm going to be the person that you will not really be happy with when I have to ask you to wrap it up. But think about that when you first begin to speak. We need to give everybody, as best we can, an opportunity to talk. So 2 minutes. Good deal? All right, let's get started.
Okay, so I think we want to start with somebody. Okay, I'm going to let you go first, and then we're going to go. You had your hands raised? Okay, you have a question?
Good evening, everyone. While Commissioner Shea, my name is Joe Gonzalez, I live in Bed-Stuy. While we're talking about the transformation of NYPD, it's important for everyone in this room and everyone in the larger community to understand optics. Optics. So not only do things have to be right, but they have to look right. And the concern of many in this room, because I've had I know just about everyone in here, and many people in the community, is how NYPD has behaved in themselves on your watch. And what I can't get away from is the behavior of NYPD on the issue of masks and social distancing several months back was atrocious. The whole world saw the video. And you have to deal with the undeniable fact that the behavior of NYPD was markedly different in the past 2 weeks in Borough Park. While residents of Borough Park were assaulting news reporters, setting fires, throwing threats left and right, and they were not thrown in the ground. They weren't beaten, kicked, arrested, and everything else. You have to deal with that, Commissioner Shea. I'm not a cop hater. I attend community meetings. They know me. I know them. But I can't escape the optics of the behavior in one subsection of the city versus Borough Park and similar areas. That has to be dealt with. And as I said, it happened on your watch. The other thing is staffing. What has to happen is your commanders, and ultimately under your leadership, there has to be a very clear explanation to people how police officers are assigned to communities. Some neighborhoods see cops everywhere, and other neighborhoods complain that they don't see officers. So there needs to be a very clear understanding. Are they there because of reports of crime? Or is it population related? Or what are the metrics that go into how police officers are assigned to neighborhoods, and the related conversation, because people all across the city believe that they're being cheated. They say, we don't see any cops. So those are the two issues that I present to you, Commissioner Shea, and welcome to Brooklyn.
So let me just jump in here. The commissioner and the chiefs, we're not going to have them respond to everybody. And it's not because they don't want to respond. We just don't have the time, and we want to make sure that we hear from you. What I quickly want to say to you is, I did not hear, and I don't want to put it in your mouth, right? But I want to make sure that we're capturing the issue as you're presenting it. So we've heard in other communities, people talk about differential treatment as you go from one community to the next. And in some communities, they have, they've attributed, or they've presented it as a difference in race and sometimes there are racial differences in one community to the next where you see differential treatment. Are you just saying differential treatment overall? Is it race-based? I just want to make sure that we are capturing your thoughts accurately.
It's a little bit of both. Sometimes it's the racial connection. Many people believe that the well-to-do areas such as Park Slope and Upper East
So
Side
race and
Manhattan,
class.
it's a combination of race and class. There are a lot of working people and poor people in Borough Park, but they weren't beaten up by the police in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's a combination of race and class.
Thank you. Okay.
We're going to go to Marwa Ellis on Zoom. So Marwa, if you're ready, and we won't see Marwa, but we'll definitely hear her. Marwa, are you there?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Please ask
Okay.
your question.
Hi, my name is Marwa Ellis. I'm a 10th grader, and I was very disappointed with last night's meeting. I'm a youth, and I really wanted to ask my question. And, okay, this is what I wanted to say. Growing up in middle school, I went to school. I'm a Muslim. I was born in Africa, raised in South Brooklyn. I grew up in a neighborhood between Midwood and Ditmas, and people come in every different shape, size, color, religion, language. Very diverse neighborhood. And I had to grow up in middle school with my friends being too scared to go out at night because they're afraid of being bothered by the police because they are not white. And at that age, that is the least of what they should be worrying about. So my question to the NYPD is, do they realize how traumatizing they can be to the youth when they rush through neighborhoods and walk around in very scary demeanors, and they don't take into account what others see in them or how scary they can be? That's my question.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Chief, do you want to respond to that?
Right.
We're going to definitely, we're going to get to,
So-
I promise you, okay?
So my response to that is we definitely know how traumatizing that can be. I don't know what type of response is warranted, whether they're responding to help someone, to certain calls or circumstances, but I understand, the department understands that's very traumatizing. You're absolutely right. And it's something that we're here to listen to this evening and to move forward and learn from. And that way, with you voicing how you feel, we can take that into consideration moving forward. That's what tonight's about. And I thank you for your comment.
Someone else in the room has a question? Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to welcome you back to Brownsville. That was it.
And so to answer your question, sir, that Inspector Commissioner Shea will be responding at the end. So when he closes, I'm sure he's absorbing everything that you say and will take notes to respond to those questions. Do we have any other questions out here? Yes, sir. Yes, Brother Danny.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Recently, I've been more involved in working with young people in the street to cure violence. And there's been an uptick in shootings of young people. But what disturbs me the most is when we have to do the repast and the funeral, the kind of courage that sometimes we see and the insensitivity that sometimes we see when some of the officers have to be around these young men and women. The other night I had the opportunity or the displeasure of being at a repast of a lot of young men, and the first officer that I encountered was a sergeant from the 7-3, and I had to call Community Affairs. I had to call Officer Rodriguez, but what he did for me is got a supervisor up there, and things was handled. But I just want to say to the all officers, you never know how someone feels in the moment of death. I think that should be, I don't care what you're wearing, I think that should be a time when somebody's sensitive enough to know that young people are hurting, a community is hurting, and families are hurting. And I just wish that we can do something to have the right kind of people, because when I say the right kind of people, I'm not talking about black or white. But I've been blessed to have a community affairs and youth officers that understand us a little better than the B cop. So I don't want to drag it out because those of us that have been around it, we see it and we buffer it. Men and women buffer it because we don't want our people that's already suffering through a death to be traumatized more by somebody they're going to see every day in a precinct. So I thank y'all.
Very much appreciated.
We have someone from Facebook, and I just want to read their comment, and it's Rita Mazzella. And her question was, have community events that show the neighborhood what the NYPD does to keep crime down, like educational seminars for the community to keep crime down and inform people how to protect themselves. So that's just a general question around what is done in the community. Are people familiar with the practices of NYPD? And that's maybe something that she's suggesting that NYPD does moving forward. Is there someone, yes, Ms.
Hi, my name is Delia Hunley-Adelson. I'm the 88 Precinct Community and Youth Council President, and I've been the council president for 20-some years. Commissioner, when I first met you and you came into your new position, one of the things that you said that you wanted to do and weigh heavy on was youth initiatives. I've had from 1PP numerous people communicate with me, and I wanted to know and find out if you still feel the same way, because I think that a lot of things that are happening in our community, we could circumvent if we get to our youth at an early stage. So I'm still interested, as I told you when I met you the first time. We've had in the 88 at one time over 200 plus youth in a summer youth program. We have Help and Encourage Leadership program, and we have a myriad of things. I've shared a lot with the chief. Can't say everything I want to say tonight, but at one point in time, I'd like to make sure that we do that, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm glad to be hearing from you all tonight, hearing a lot about youth engagement, youth prevention and intervention, support, sensitivity.
Right. Do we have another question from the floor? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Moses Weiser. Good evening to Commissioner, Chiefs. As this now, I think it's very most important to get into the schools. Start out with their education, first of all, what NYPD is, and then encourage them, especially all the things that go around in the city, give the youth lectures, give the youth how to handle things, how to do things. Unfortunately, when they go out to the street, they see things the wrong way, get a bad influence. And I know we've spoken in the past about it, with prior chiefs, prior meetings, that the most emphasis should be start in the schools, in the public schools, private schools, to show the kids what's all about, to have a different picture, first, of course, NYPD and the community. And they'll go out of school and look at things differently, so crime for sure will be much lower down. I know we've spoken in the past, I think it's a very important issue.
Thank you.
We have a recommendation from someone on Facebook. Her name is Minna LaFortune, and she's saying that we need to add clinical therapists to report to incidents by NYPD. So this is a recommendation for her to add mental health professionals and social workers to the NYPD community outreach. So that's a recommendation from Minna LaFortune. We have someone on Facebook. I believe it's Mr. Take my glasses off. This is age now. Adam Block on Zoom. Adam, are you there so you can ask your question?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I just want to say that I want to urge the leadership of the NYPD to bring law and order back to the city by enforcing the law against the city's most prominent group of lawbreakers. So my questions are very simple. Will the NYPD stop parking illegally on sidewalks and in front of hydrants as thousands of cops do every day? Will the NYPD stop illegally going maskless when not social distancing as thousands of cops do so every day, including Commissioner Shea on several occasions? Will the NYPD stop attacking and arresting people for expressing their political opinions, as many cops did in May and June, as well as over the past month? And will the NYPD levy the correct sanctions, whether arrests or fines or citations, against those members of the force who break these laws?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Accountability goes both ways, right? Anybody here? No, please.
Real quick, I would like to state that we have a lot of great leaders in our community, and the only way we're going to move forward is helping each other. There's no way continue doing dialogue and not being proactive. We're not going to get anywhere. I want to say to the commissioner, please utilize the leaders, the ministers in the community, the real ministers in the community, the real ministers who are working with the youth. When you don't call, when no one else calls, we're out here. There's a handful of ministers who are here who are working with the youth, working with the gang members, and we get ridiculed because the officers pass by and they called us perps. A minister, a bishop, they call us perps. You have to understand that we come from this neighborhood, and the gang members know who we are, knew how we lived our lives, and now we change. So in order for us to sit at the table, we all need to understand that we need each other. This is not about NYPD. This is not about the ministers. This is about all of us coming to the table and bringing forward a solution for the next generation. God bless you.
Thank you for that comment. It's about collaborative policing. As we're talking about identifying individuals who are known in community. We're talking about using our clergy. That's what I'm hearing from you, because you have those relationships with the individuals who may be determined as individuals who are not doing the right things.
And
so thank you for that.
I want to go a step further, because we have heard in other settings people saying that they are part of some of these collaborative conversations, but when it comes down to actual policing or matters that are occurring, they sometimes are overlooked. And so it's not just knowing who the people are,
right,
but making sure that we're making the most of these collaborations and these partnerships. And sometimes we have to understand that the NYPD is just moving. And the urgency of the matter sometimes causes you to move, but we have to work on utilizing those collaborations as best we can. So it's having them and using them.
We're going to go back to Zoom, and then we're going to come to you, Bishop Seabrook. We have a Penny Grenage. That's on Zoom, Ms. Grenage. I hope I pronounced that right, and if I didn't, please forgive me.
Yes, you're forgiven. It's Greenwich. I have some concerns with regard to the police. Living in the community, I want to be protected, it's true, from the bad actors and from crimes and the increased shootings that I'm hearing. But I also am concerned about, I have a son who's African American, and he's a decent kid, college educated, who works, and I'm concerned about him coming home to me in light of treatment from police officers. I'm not saying that all officers are bad, but I do believe there needs to be better tactical training for officers, which focus more on de-escalation training, de-escalation with dignity. And I understand being an officer and in a scuffle and in a situation, they are also afraid. Their adrenaline is pumping, and they want to go home to their families at night too. But maybe they need overtraining, but there needs to be something that kicks in automatically where they can do their job, make those decisions, and still treat whoever they're dealing with in a dignified manner. And finally, quickly, racial sensitivity training. We all have our own prejudices, we all come with that, but police officers have such power over the ordinary citizen that they must receive this kind of training periodically. It can't be a one and done. One and done doesn't work. We need to have it, whether it's once every 6 months, once every 8 months. I'm not going to suggest a schedule, but it needs to be a focus, especially when you have officers who are working in communities that they aren't a part of. They haven't lived in, they haven't grown up, they haven't gone to school. They live in other communities. So I think in order to understand the people within the community that they're serving, they really need to have frequent training. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. in your comments, but I do want did I say it right, or Chief P? Chief, to respond to that, who oversees our training work.
Thank you. No, great question. No, we agree. It's absolutely critical to acclimate police officers to the communities they're serving in, to some of the unique needs of the city. That begins in the police academy with brand new recruits. We have a curriculum on how to be a police officer in a multicultural society. We also teach the impact and the awareness of implicit bias in the academy. And we've recently completed a 2-year program to put everybody through a 1-day implicit bias awareness course. And we had actually several versions of that course. So police officers and detectives went to one version geared towards them. Supervisors went to a version of the program that dealt with supervisory issues. And then executives went to a higher level version of the course that dealt with being an executive and a manager and how to deal with your people and also understand those issues. So that's something that was recently completed. We're about to begin a version of that program for our civilian employees. And we're also looking at, and we agree, as I think I mentioned in my opening remarks, a lot of this training, the skills are perishable or need to be reinforced constantly. So we're looking at options for refresher training and what that looks like. You know, COVID has made everything a challenge because of the ability to bring people in and train them in person, especially a lot of our training involves role plays and scenario-based exercises. We like to have that interaction with a lot of this stuff, but we're looking at other distance learning options for that.
If I may just, on that particular issue, I think we need to take note, as we're taking notes of what's being said, we need to make sure that our training is continually responsive to what we're seeing and hearing in the communities, and really doing that accountability and cross-check on a continual basis. We can train until we're blue in the face, but if the training is not really responding to the issues that are presenting, it's getting us nowhere. I'm not suggesting that I'm just...
Bishop Seabrook, I promised you, and so I want to keep to my promise.
If you don't have the time, it's fine. First, let me welcome Police Commissioner Shea, and welcome to our favorite Holmes, Commissioner Chief Holmes, and then to my Chief Harrison. So let me start with the positive first. On a positive note, school safety. The agents that you placed in the school were some of the most disciplined and well-liked police officers in the city of New York. Whatever training that you gave those school safety, I mean, they're passionate, they resolve issues, and they're doing a great job. So I want to thank you. And secondly, with the police, the community police officers that are in our communities, seem to understand the community and know how to act in professionalism, respect, and courtesy. On the other hand, let me go to the negative. There is some other groups that come into the community that don't practice, professionalism, courtesy, and respect. And I think that's what everybody's missing. The African American community wants to be treated like every other community, and I think this is global. I don't just think this is a city problem. So what are we doing in the police department to deal with systemic racism that exists in definitely African American and Hispanic communities? Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 questions that came over to us that all basically, and I just want to recognize the people that asked those questions. They were on Facebook, Troy Holman, Daryl Johnson, and Crystal Brown. And those questions were based on relationships in the community around police officers, having them be here longer than regular 2 to 3 years, that officers should be here for a longer period of time, that they should know their community, and they should be from the community. So I just want to recognize these 3 questions. Do we have any other questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is James Caldwell. I'm the president for the 77th Precinct Community Council. And I've been waiting to ask this question for a long time, Police Commissioner. And you know, 6 years ago, I spoke out against the mayor and at the time, Police Commissioner Bratton, because there was a lot of stabbing in our community. And we also spoke about we don't have enough resources in our community. And man, why did I say that? Oh, the backlash. You know, I've served under 6 police commissioners. You've been the 6th one. And 3 was good, and unfortunately on your side, 3 are bad. And the reason I say that is because we have invited you all to come to the 77th precinct, and you have not showed up, maybe because you got an attitude with me, I don't know. But you haven't showed up. You know, I'm a veteran. I've served my country. And I think that's very unfair that you guys are supposed to be professional. You know, you don't supposed to get these so-called attitudes, you know. And if you treat me this way, how are you treating our community if you don't show up? I think there's something just totally wrong with that. And for me to come out here tonight, I didn't know you was going to be here, but it's a blessing. Because we're going to give you another opportunity. We're doing a basketball tournament on Saturday. We're inviting you to come to that. And maybe you can work with our officers that work so hard with our youth, and maybe you all will work with me. Thank you.
Thank you. We have someone here in person, but they wrote their question, and it's what policy or program do we have to combat recidivism? For economic growth and development, how are we creating jobs? In a broken society, what programs do we have in place to build better communication between residents and law enforcement? So I'm going to let you guys
Here's the
absorb
deal.
that.
I'm going to tell you that, I'm personally going to tell you that Commissioner Shea and I have had this conversation. And what I'm going to ask is that we put that on the list of issues that we need to engage in. It's a conversation that extends well beyond the NYPD. It concerns all of New York City. Is that fair, Commissioner?
Thanks. We have somebody on Zoom, and I'm going to come back into the room. Zach Martin, could you go ahead and ask your question? Zach, are you there?
Sorry, I didn't know I could unmute myself. I'm really grateful for the opportunity. Again, real have concerns about the transparency of how people get into that meeting. The Zoom call doesn't quite cut it. I understand the physical distancing reality. But the question about accountability, there have just been so many, particularly in North Brooklyn, police officers who have harmed individuals, harmed families, and those communities have never heard about anything that's been done to correct those wrongs. Police officers have hit protesters with their cars, have run over young people in the neighborhood, held young people on jails in precincts without notifying their parents until midnight of that night. Those things were never corrected. Those officers were never held accountable in a way that the community can see and understand. We need more than just these websites with detailed information. Those communities need to see and hear that those corrections are being addressed. So what can the community know that will happen that will make sure that those things are being addressed in a public way so that we can see that these wrongs are being dealt with?
Accountability and transparency. Correct?
The two words that we keep hearing over and over again, the theme of accountability, transparency, and about real relationships, sustainable and relationship with values. That's what we keep hearing over and over again. Okay. We have another question from someone who's on Facebook, and then I'll get to the two gentlemen in the back. And that question is, please don't use intimidation. Many teens are nervous in police presence already. The videos of police playing basketball with teens or engaging with them are ways that aren't about the law. With them, ways that aren't about the law. Those videos make police more approachable. So I guess what I'm getting from that is that utilizing opportunities to police and our young people to have some sort of interaction makes it a little bit more approachable for the police officers and community. Okay. Sir, you had a question. Gentleman in the back with the tie.
Good evening, everyone. distinguished guests. How y'all doing? I'm Daniel Fisher, the 81st Precinct Community Council President, and I just want to pick up on my brothers in arms here who were all in the same community. You are doing a very good job, specifically the NCOs, the officers, they are terrific. They come around, we know who they are, they engage with us, and we have real relationships with them. This is an old idea that I'm throwing back out there. I do think we need officers that are walking the streets, though, so for a few things, to pick up on the optics and create a presence. But the NCOs, they know us. They know the ones who are out there sort of moving and shaking. But there's a number of our members of our community, like the seniors, who are going back and forth to the store, to the Senior Citizen Center, not so much right now, but who are out there and they don't see these officers. So creating a presence, it helps knock down the relationships, it helps people see, and it helps the criminals see that not only are people in cars, but there are people walking the streets. So I'm throwing out an old idea again that covers a bunch of the topics that we've talked about tonight. Put back some folks who are walking the street, even if the NCOs take one day out the car and walk the neighborhood in their sector, A, B, D, C, the whole thing. All right? Thank you.
Okay. Sir, you have a question?
We just want to let everybody on Zoom know that we are practicing social distancing. They just sanitized the microphone. We just wanted to let y'all know that. Commissioner Shea, Anthony Newell's wearing two hats, 73rd Precinct Community Council President and the Brownsville End Violence Out Cure Violence Program Manager. So I had the pleasure in August, thanks to Chief Harrison, Chief Madre, and the newly breath of fresh air Inspector Terrell Anderson from the 73rd Precinct. We were utilizing 127 Pennsylvania Avenue, and it was the first time that a Cure Violence site had the opportunity to do a de-escalation with NYPD. I know you're aware of Cure Violence, I know you might support it, but I don't think you put your foot in the water yet to allow us to show your officer what a de-escalation looked like from our standpoint. So what we found out, and I sent the pictures to Chief Harrison, what we found out is that our de-escalation tools work very well, and so do yours. But the sight of your uniform sends people blood pressure out the sky, and we really and truly. So are you willing to assist me and my borough chief in the next couple of weeks coming up in Brooklyn North to do another de-escalation and come and witness what we do and how we can interact with NYPD and resolve conflicts together?
Thank you.
Harrison heard that? I heard that. Thank you. Chief Harrison's buying lunch. Come on, I don't buy lunch.
I think there's people in this room know each other, so there's that kind of familiarity going on. But in regards to buying lunch, one of the questions that just came in from someone here in the audience is that, is there a way for funding to go to the precinct councils to be able to work with the local precinct to better build relationships in community? And that's a minimum, they were very specific, a minimum of $5,000 to help the council to be able to facilitate those kinds of relations. So that's just something to throw in. We have another question here. It says, what are your plans for 2020 to 2021 to better improve policing and community relations with COVID-19? And that's Dr. Best. So, yes. Do we have any other more questions on the floor? You can definitely make a comment. Right, you can definitely make a comment.
What I want to say relative to the money, years ago we used to get a stipend from City Council for the community councils. It should come out of their discretionary. Brooklyn North, we all know about that, the old timers that are here, because we made sure that they gave us money. But I could say in the past, after Mary Pinkett came out of office, 2005, James E. Davis, we stopped getting that money. So maybe as a collective, we could write City Council and ask them for that funding because we're entitled to it. If they're going to take funds from the New York City Police Department and put them in another place, give it to us. So we got to do that together. I'm game if all you are. All right.
Do we have any other questions on the floor? Go ahead. Ms. Bess, is that? Oh, okay. Bishop Figueroa, you have a question?
Good evening, everybody, and excuse me for my customary lateness. No disrespect, just tending to so much in our community. I've lived in Brooklyn all my life. I'm Brooklyn born and Brooklyn bred. When I die, I'll be Brooklyn dead. I've already got my family plot in Evergreen. There's just one plot left. And I asked my uncle, how many plots do we have left at Evergreen? He said, there's only one spot, and you can have it if you want it. I don't want it. But I am very concerned about the murders and the shootings. I live in the 8-1, and my church is in the 77. And many of these great leaders are familiar with those areas, but I'm deeply troubled with the murders and with the shootings that we see over and over again. And I do agree with my brother that a foot patrol would be a visual deterrent. Thank you, Chief Harrison. I love you. Pray for you. My father, my whole family is from the police department. My father, my uncle, amen, my nephews, everybody's in the police department but me. I went into church. Amen. I need police assistance. Murders are rampant, Commissioner, and one of the great deterrents would be a uniformed police officer, available, accessible, visible. Their presence alone is one of the greatest deterrents to people who would take advantage of anybody else. And we need to know how you can put those foot soldiers on the ground so that they would comfort and assist and reassure the constituents of all of our communities that the police are for us. And if to put that in the form of a question, I guess that's what I'm supposed to do. Okay, all right, thank you.
Not that I'm playing off the bishop. I'm just saying you don't have to. I'm hearing a lot about police presence.
Right.
And how valuable that would be. I'm just going to do a little moderator delivery. So it's good to see you, Bishop Figueroa. Thank you. I am the daughter of Dr. William Lester. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Absolutely a pleasure. It's been a while.
It goes back to what my co-facilitator is talking about, this whole idea about what does policing look like in our community, people of color. One of the questions that just came in, and Bishop, you just talked about this, the police presence, what does that mean? And I can generally say that when I work in the community, folks want really good police officers because with everything in life, we want the better than we want the worse, right? And we want the worst not to be there. And so the question that comes in from Micah Padella on Facebook is how do we retain the good officers and we lose our best officers to police departments outside the city? So asking about retention, utilizing those that are doing well and doing the good work and rewarding them for them to be within the communities that they serve. So that was some Micah Padella.
Because we've been gathering a lot of information. And the commissioner to respond to everything all in one question at the end. So I'm going to ask you, Commissioner, if you're so inclined to say a few words now.
It's up to you.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm
Yeah,
talking,
that's
I'm
fine.
not talking.
I mean,
I'm
he was
talking to
taking
the
notes.
Okay.
He's taking notes.
Is there anyone else? Chief Harrison, would you like to say a few words? Okay. Whatever your preference is.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for your wonderful questions. And I'm so happy, I love you too, thank you. And I'm so happy that you're here, and I'm so happy that you're engaged, because this department is so dedicated to wanting to get better. We do a lot of things right, but we're not so full of ourselves that we don't think that we can't get better. And we know that we need to leverage relationships, and you are key. And you're a key part of how we can move forward, your ideas. I heard a lot of questions about, or comments about foot patrol, and I agree. I was a foot cop many, many, many years ago, and as a foot cop, you have a small geographical area, you're walking in and out of stores, you're introducing yourselves, you're getting to know people who live in the community, so I wholeheartedly agree with that. So that's something we can look at. That's definitely something that we can see if we can do it feasible, because I do see value in that. A couple of other things I wanted to address really quickly. People talked about accountability. Absolutely, we have to be accountable. And as members of the New York City Police Department, our integrity has to be beyond reproach. It starts with us. So it's a two-way street. We need to treat the community with respect. We want to be treated with respect, but we know there are definitely areas where we can improve, and this is what this great listening session is, us hearing your ideas so that we can get better, because we are your police department, and you should have a say in how you are policed. Policing isn't something that should just be done to you. Policing is something that should be done with you, and we're wholeheartedly dedicated to working with you and for you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another question from Betty Cooney on Zoom. Ms. Cooney, are you there? Ms. Cooney?
Yes,
Okay,
I couldn't get
thank
the
you.
mute button to work. I have a few questions. I've lived in this area my entire life, and I'm over 65. I don't like to admit it, but I'll tell you, we work with the 75th Precinct, and I think that the precinct is way too large for this area. They can't control it. I think they do the best they can. I know they're underserved. Even their phone systems are not working well. But you know, it takes a lot of time. People don't understand. They don't respond to things in a timely manner. I know that there are serious crimes, and you know, when you say that you have a noise problem, they don't think it's a bad problem. But when you have to go to work, and it's a quality of life issue that really is a bad thing. It's the reason why a lot of people in my neighborhood have left. And you know, you talk about neighborhoods changing. I saw someone who's talking about gentrification. Well, it's wonderful, but I lived here all my life, and I watched this neighborhood change. It used to be an Irish-Italian community, and now it's not. It's mostly Hispanic. It's wonderful. We've stayed here all this time. There's no problem with it. But you know, people are complaining now that people of my color or non-color are moving in here and displacing them. And I'm really hurt by that, because quite honestly, you know, when people of my color left years and years ago, they didn't get a lot of money for their houses. People are buying their houses. They don't have to sell your house if you don't want to. If you want to stay, you want to make it better. Try to work with the new people. I think it's reverse discrimination when you say that.
Help me out.
I don't think
Help me
people
out.
understand that.
Hold on.
People don't like me saying it.
Tell
Okay?
me what your
I'm
issue
sorry.
is concerning the NYPD. You're talking about gentrification, and what is your issue?
Well, I have several issues. It just, first of all, I'd like to see sometimes that the police can respond to things like quality of life issues at a reasonable time, not 8 hours later after it's over. And I'd like to see more police on the street. I mean, yes, years ago we had the beat cop. We don't see that anymore. I work with the police very closely in another precinct in Williamsburg. And, you know, it's really, we have to support the police, and we should hold parents and homes much more responsible. You know, people want to blame the police for everything. What's happening in the families? Why aren't they stepping up? Why aren't all these churches? I see churches on every corner. We need those churches to step up and work with the youth and get things done. I mean, we had youth organizations when I grew up. We didn't have a lot of programs. But if the community would take a little bit more responsibility and families would take a little bit more responsibility, maybe we wouldn't have some of these issues. It's horrible. When I hear
All right.
about black
I'm
on black
going to have to
crimes and
interject
shootings,
because we've gone beyond the
it's
2
terrible.
minutes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
We have a comment from Robert Boyce, who's on Facebook, and it goes back to something that we talked about, Commissioner and others. Merit matters. Hire the best people possible via a challenging civil service exam, regardless of race, creed, or national origin. Do we have, yes, ma'am?
Right here, then we'll come over here.
Good evening. My name is Yarnique Washington. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm not here to bash anybody. I believe that in order to create a better society, you have to make the people part of the solution. You can train your police officers all day, once a month, however you choose to, but communication goes both ways. So with that being said, we have to create a game changer that's going to give us the solution that's going to make the people change. And you do that by making them part of the solution.
Okay, so we have Pastor Kevin Graves on Zoom. Pastor Kevin Graves. Pastor Graves.
Good evening.
Okay. Good evening.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight for this Zoom call. I'm the clergy liaison for the 32nd Precinct in Harlem. And I just wanted to touch on the mental wellness of our New York City police officers, their psychological well-being. As a pastor, I not only serve the community, I'm concerned about the socioeconomic condition of the community that I serve. I'm also concerned about our police officers as well, because they're a part of the community. They serve the community. And my question is there a component in place to deal with the psychological strain of what it's like to be a police officer? How are we handling the fear and the trauma that many of our police officers go through? And is there someone to speak to them? Now, you may say, well, that's the clergy. That's what the clergy is there for. That's what the chaplains unit is there for. And I agree. But is there individuals within the NYPD who officers can trust and go to without fear of being isolated because they're going through a very difficult time, whether it's bringing issues at home to the precinct, so on and so forth. So my point here is that police officers are human, and they don't always get it right. I tell this to my cops. I say, look, policing is not difficult. However, not every cop is good. We have racism in our society. There's racism in law enforcement. I'm keeping it real. And how can we deal with the psychological issues with our police officers, and are they routinely checked so that, again, we don't have officers who are quote unquote walking wounded? Thank you so much. God bless you and have a good night.
Thanks.
Very much appreciate that point.
Actually, mental health issue is something that's important, not only in NYPD, but in our community as a whole. And I think that's a really important issue for us to talk about. So I'm going to ask you, Commissioner, if you can speak on that quickly, and then, we'll get to some other questions.
Eva, thank you. And for the caller, thank you for the comment. And I think you're absolutely right in terms of the wellness and the well-being of our police officers. I can tell you that we had a really tough year last year in terms of police officers taking their own life. And is there someone that they can talk to with the stresses? We're people. We go home, we take off the uniform, or at least I used to, and you have all the same stress that people in this community and other communities have, whether it's sick children, sick parents, financial woes, and everything in between, and the stress of the job. There are certainly clergy available. There are peer counselors available, and the peer counselors is probably the most recent innovation that we put into place, just as Commissioner O'Neill and Ben Tucker last year. Police officers volunteering on their own in each precinct to step forward, not paid extra, receiving additional training, and being almost that brother or sister at the local level, eyes and ears, to spot problems before they see it. So it is something that we are incredibly worried about, as everyone is. I mean, they are our most valuable resource, the men and women of this department, but I think that you would feel the same about the members of your church, and everyone would as well in any job that you are. I think it's incumbent upon all of us, and it's something that we speak about at the executive level all the time in terms of our membership, looking for warning signs of stress and trying to step in and mediate that before anything tragic happens.
Commissioner, thank you, thank you. This is an issue that has been raised in other settings, and we want to make sure that we're capturing two things when we talk about the mental health challenges that can present when being an NYPD officer, and make sure that we're responsive to that. One is making sure that we are being responsive to mental health challenges that may present, but then also looking at how those mental health challenges may affect the police officer in their work, how those challenges then can be manifested, you know, when they're on patrol, and how that can affect the community. So it's twofold.
And just on that same level, we have someone, Najee Riddle from Facebook, who asked the same question. Police need to be better trained on how to deal with people with disabilities like autism and people with mental health issues. I think this is something that we've been talking about, the idea about bringing clinicians on a call to respond to issues when someone can be identified as an IEP. What is it? The term that police officers use, that's to tell you I'm not one, right? And then additionally talked about biases that sometimes officers come up thinking that automatically when someone has a mental health issues, that they're assumed that they're either using drugs or they're criminals. So that is from Najee Riddle. Sarah Hickman on Zoom. Ms. Hickman. Okay. Yeah, you can.
I'm over 30 years with the police department as a clergy liaison, and the last caller brought up the issue. I understand the crime went up. My question is direct to the commissioner and the executive. Don't we think the problem is because people who do the crime are not scared to do things because the cops won't do anything, they're being sued, being stuffed, and that's actually bringing out the cops to do less work because they feel a fear to do things? Because some guys know, lock up, I'm out 2 hours later, so automatically crime goes up. So my question is, don't we feel the cops are being like tied back and they can't do the job properly, and they would love to do the job properly? What approach is the department doing about it? Because we need the cops out there. They are there fighting for us, all of us, and they put in their life in front of their family. They go home, they go have a family. What is the department doing to give them more strength, ability to do their job? Because I feel a lot of people do the crime, they know, I'm out for 2 hours, I come back tomorrow again. What is the department doing to give them?
I just want to make sure that, because you've got the mask on, I want to make sure that we understand what you're saying.
My question is,
about
what is the department doing for the cops' sake to make sure they can do the job properly? The people shouldn't think can do a crime and get the next day. They should feel comfortable by picking up the
So you're saying, you're asking whether or not cops feel that they are empowered to do their jobs?
I feel some cops feel they're not empowered because they're scared what's going on.
A question of whether or not they feel empowered to do the work.
See?
You're asking whether or not cops feel empowered and supported to do the work, or they just feel like it's a continuing cycle?
Well, I feel some cops, maybe they're not doing it, they want to do the job, but their hands are tied to a certain extent.
Okay. Okay.
Real quick, going back to the mental health situation, Commissioner, do you think we can sit at the table and bring clergy in order to speak to these officers? Because personally, I know the bishop and myself, there's officers who have our numbers and we talk to them. And there's plenty of officers that we were able, by the grace of God, not because of us, but by what God has deposited in us, in order for them to not take their life away. Is there any way we can make this something while you're in office to make this permanent? A clergy in the precinct with an office, and being able to an officer who's going through whatever issue, come in and speak to the minister at whatever religion he is. Because there's some ministers that just confess one religion, but when you love Jesus and you know where you come from, you take care of the whole human race.
So again, the whole consensus of utilizing community residents who have input and strong input in the community. That's the overall question I'm hearing, as far as comments. I'm going to go to someone on Facebook, and then I'll come back to you, sir. Ms. Hickman, are you back? Did we lose? Okay, I guess Ms. Hickman is not around. I do. You are, Ms. Hickman? Okay. Jordan Epstein? Mr. Epstein?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. One night, I needed help with something, and I asked the cop, and they were just laughing at me and wouldn't take me seriously. And they said I should just go home and there's nothing they could do. And they just went back to standing in front of the precinct. And I'm always saying, as long as we're paying them, they can't just be standing there. At the very least, if they're not going to be helping me, why not pick up trash on the streets and actually make the place better?
Okay. So let me, okay. I'm sure someone captured that. But what I'm hearing from you is the question of if they're going to be outside, they should be able to assist citizens, and if they're not going to do that, then they need to find another job. Is that that's what I'm hearing, right?
I'm going to say that it's going a little deeper. It's just all part and parcel of this overall community police interaction relationship.
Correct.
Okay.
Hold on. Yes, sir.
I need to say something right now because I think I just stumbled upon a serious issue in the room. When my brother was talking about optics, we looking. When you talk to me, Rev, and you say certain things, and I'm sorry, I'm a country boy. I don't understand that word, you people. I don't understand that you was a prep or you was a mutt. Now, in this room, I know y'all didn't really pick it up, but I'm a Southerner, and when they say you people, it chills me to the bone. And I need to say this. So when we out conducting and helping each other, we have to be careful about the words that we use. And that's what we don't understand. Now, there's a bunch of us in this room, and I don't know if anybody heard it, but I heard it. Okay, it was you people. Now, you people is negative when it comes to my community. So I just need y'all to understand that I can work with anybody in this room, but NYPD used this great word about belligerent. I get belligerent when I hear stuff like that. I get to talking loud. I get to understanding why there's no sensitivity when you don't understand who I am when I'm trying to understand who you are. So I need us to be more proactive, how we talk to each other, how we move. Because when y'all say we can't talk to young people, all of us in here, we talk to young people. So we understand that we have to respect the law. And the law has to understand that they need to respect those of us. That's all I need to say.
Thank you. So I have a question that came across on my watch. And the question to NYPD is, and I look at this, when will you stop the niceties and address the issue of police officers not respecting community? That's the question. So I'm sure that at the end that someone will answer that question.
Right. And what I want to say to that is that I think we're actually hearing a lot of that. And I also want to say, as I said at the outset, not every question or comment is going to be addressed to your satisfaction tonight. This is part and parcel of a very extensive engagement and process. And frankly, as a community member as well, I would be very, very, very leery of every answer being given in this moment, because I want the NYPD to hear and to listen and to take into consideration what's being said and not just throw out answers at me in the moment.
Correct.
Fair?
And I think for this, in this kind of venue that we have, and as many of us are community residents, we've shared our disagreements with police officers. I think when I look at this audience and even being in this space, I always want to say we hold you accountable, right? The reason that you're here and you're listening and you're absorbing all of this is to hope that change will come, right? And so now this accountability is not just from this level, but from the governor coming down to this. It's about accountability throughout the board and throughout NYPD. That's what we're hearing. Okay, Brandon Limo. I believe that's on Zoom. Brandon, I hope I pronounced it correct. Lino.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Brandon.
Hi, my name is Brandon Sargolino. I'm a junior. I just wanted to, I hear a lot talking about the fear and trauma that police officers face. And I was just wondering, what about the fear and the trauma that the youth face? I know a lot of the youth hesitate when they're in trouble to actually call on police officers at first when they're in a difficult situation or when they actually need an officer. So my question is, how does NYPD plan on building a better relationship with the youth so that they can trust them more, so that next time that they are in trouble, that they don't hesitate first when calling them?
Thank you. Again, the questions around community relation, trust, being able to depend on the individuals that are servicing our community or serving our areas, correct?
Right, absolutely. And what I want to just say to that caller is he's helping us to center. I mean, one of the things that we are most interested in is hearing how people feel, in terms of how can they trust the police department to be there for them when they are in need. We have an individual in the room.
Sir, you have a question?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Josiah Battle. I'm a youth. I'm 15 years old, and I happen to be a law enforcement explorer with NYPD. And I've been sitting here listening, and I've been hearing outreach with the youth. So really, my question is, what can we, the explorers, do to help our own, like our youth? Because, like I said, I'm 15, and, I feel that somebody my age could reach somebody my age, if you understand. Because, most youth right now don't like cops. And, most people ask me, why are you an explorer? Why are you doing this? Oh, you with the feds. And it's not like that. I tell them the Explorer program is just an insight on what, your career options. I've been blessed to have great interactions with police officers, but some of my friends, unfortunately, have not. And so I just want to, ask, what can I do? Or what can the explorers do as a whole to make these interactions with police officers better? That's my question.
Can we have Chief Harrison?
I am compelled to respond to this young man, Josiah. The invitation went out, and he didn't hesitate. Josiah is someone I met. I've been the borough commander here in Brooklyn North about 3 months, and I met him in my first week. We've been doing a tremendous amount of outreach. Every time I turn around, I see Josiah. Just as recently as last Saturday, when we gave out food in the community, he was there. We had our backpack giveaway, he was there. He's answered the call. Josiah, you say, what can you do? You're doing it, young man. You're here. You're here. I am somebody who also had very positive contacts with the police. My mother was a civilian member of the police department, and as such, I dealt with the police growing up, and they had a profound impact on me. And these were police officers that They were mostly male, they were Caucasian, but they poured into me and my brother. They supported us, and they were really great and had a profound impact on us growing up. So Josiah, what I want to say to you is, when you're talking to your classmates, when you're talking to your neighbors, encourage them to come. Encourage them to come the way you come. Encourage them to participate. You get to see us in a different light, and you've worked alongside of us. The most important thing is getting your peers to join us too, so they can see us also in a different light. We want to help children. We believe youth are the future, and we want to tap into the youth as a resource. And I'm going to personally keep tapping into you. So next time we have this forum, bring a friend, bring 2 friends. Next time we're doing a giveaway, we have a Halloween giveaway coming up soon. We'll be giving away turkeys for Thanksgiving. Bring your friends, bring your classmates. Let us give them the experience that you're getting, being able to work with the police department. And I think that these young kids that have positive contacts with the police, one thing that they would be getting is mentors, people to support them, people to answer questions, people to show them the way, people to help them, people to give them resources, and I think that will make a difference, because we really have to help our children, and we're all dedicated to doing that. So Josiah, I wanted to thank you again for being here, and thank you for the pivotal role that you play now, but that you're going to play in us really tapping into the youth and being able to work with them. Thank you.
We have Shariko Antoine, and again, a question about, I don't feel safe in my neighborhood. NYPD can become more knowledgeable. It's about building relationships, getting the right police officers, and not making the presumption that everyone is bad. Another question, my watch is actually, I should be keeping questions on my watch. The administration is going to change, and with all of these changes that you guys are making, how is this going to be sustainable for when the new administration comes in? Because your job with all changing administrations may be different. So the question on here is, how are you going to continue the impact that you guys are talking about in order to make whatever changes come around systemic, right? Systemic changes to be long-term.
Building a systemic, implementable, sustainable plan.
Yes.
You know what? Let's hold on that, because I think, let's hold on that. Yeah, if that's all right with you, Commissioner, because we want to.
Yes, I'm following her lead.
I believe there are probably a few other questions that maybe before we get to the close of the hour that people would want to hear more direct response on.
Okay. Joe Bustello, Mr. Bustello, on Zoom. Or Jose, I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, so I grew up in Harlem. I'm Hispanic, and I've had wonderful encounters with police officers as I've had bad encounters. I became an educator, and I teach at various colleges, working with youths. And all these programs and everything that you guys are talking about and saying, I applaud, and I would say go forward with all of these methods. But the one thing that's most important is accountability. And if a police officer commits an outright crime, he should be held accountable. And if on TV we see that that is not being done, is why you're having these protests. If we were to hold police officers accountable, then trust would fall into place and everything else that you're doing would work. But if you do all of this and then a crime is committed and it's clearly shown on TV that this officer committed the crime, that one bad apple, and he gets away with it, then what are kids gonna say? There's no justice. They're gonna walk away and say, forget all these programs. All your efforts are gonna go down the drain. I think laws have to be changed, policies have to be changed, and I know that the police union representative, defends his cops as he should, and not all of them are bad. I have 2 sons that are peace officers, and they go through hell. But, I could see their side, but outright crimes should be, these officers should be held accountable. And if that's done globally around the world, or, you know, all the different cities, Miami, Florida, wherever, Compton, any place, then people are going to say, okay, you did your job, so now whatever you ask us to do is not going to be a problem. We're going to be ready, willing, and able
So here's
to
the
work
deal.
with you.
So you're talking about accountability, and I'm going to add discipline into that. My son is a baseball player, Commissioner, and often he pitches, and sometimes and he also hits. And so I hear my husband say sometimes that's your pitch, that's the one you're going to come up and talk about right now. Discipline and accountability. That's your pitch.
Well, I was asking with the last two questions, I was wanting to grab the mic and ask a follow-up. The young woman said she doesn't feel safe in the neighborhood. I wanted to ask why. And with this one, I was curious when the gentleman was talking about, maybe it's not that important. You see the case on TV and the officer isn't held accountable. It breaks down trust, and everything else falls apart after that. I'm sorry. And I think he's absolutely right. I was just curious which case. Unfortunately, there's many to talk about, right? Some of them are in New York City, and some of them are not, and it doesn't really matter anymore because I think it's a bigger issue. With the last question, I think you're 100% right. You know, Matt, when he started talking tonight, talked about accountability and trust. And that's why we're here. And that's why, you know, whether it's Juanita, Judy, myself, Matt, and everyone else that's in the room, we understand how important that is. Is this my follow-up? Do I have the whole half hour, 20 minutes here?
You have. You got like 2 or 3
Because I got a lot.
minutes.
I got a lot to say. It's hard sitting there. I know how important it is for trust and how quickly you lose it. And we certainly have done that at times as an agency. On the transparency issue, Matt talked briefly about the blue ribbon panel that was impaneled a couple years ago. And outside, Mary Jo White and others, and took a look at the NYPD's discipline process. You may or may not agree with it, but they basically said there's a pretty robust discipline system in the NYPD. If you don't think that's true, that's really all that's important. It's knowing the process, knowing that people will be held accountable. I don't think everyone should be their legs cut off, but there's got to be a system when people do something wrong on both sides. We certainly we encourage people to get second chances. I think the same should happen for police officers, depending on what the circumstances are. But what you can't have is treating people poorly, treating people with no respect. How much of what we're talking about here today is about treating people as you would want your own family treated? Sometimes it's not that complicated. And when you have people that don't treat people with respect, it's all going to fall apart. And when they do it repeatedly, and we know they're doing it, and we don't change that behavior, it is 100% on us. And maybe they need to get a different job, maybe they need discipline, but something has to happen. And I'll talk again. I have all these notes to talk about, but one early on, it was the 10th grader, I believe, the young woman that spoke about the trauma, a new concept, I would think. And do you know the impact? We've talked about youth a lot, and great job, Josiah. I would say the same thing, get more people. I was going to ask you, how'd you get involved in the first place? Because we'll learn from that.
I was actually inspired by my neighborhood NTOs.
I love
and,
it. I love it. Yeah.
The community affairs. One in particular, Detective Narcisse out of the 81st Precinct.
That's great. That's great.
He came to me. He was like, "How would you like to join the Explorers program?" I was like, I really never thought about it at the time, but then as time, got on through COVID, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to give it a try. And so actually
thank
enjoy
you.
it.
Thank you for giving it a try, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but because we learned from that, and we got to take that back to the officers. And I tell cops this all the time, and you just proved I'm right. Not to take for granted the impact that you can have, sir, I think you would agree, right, at any point in time on somebody's life. And it's not always about running through a door or chasing a bank robber or doing all those things that are on the news. It's when no one is looking. So and I'll end on this and give you your time back. You're going to regret getting me up here. I would disagree a little bit with Juanita. When the 10th grade young lady called and said about, do people understand the impact when you get stopped? Yes, but I think sometimes no. And I think we're learning that all the time. I certainly, to me, I mean, I could tell you I have 30 years with the police department, stopped a lot of people over 30 years. I didn't always think that way. And in the Bronx last night, we had a gentleman talking about the impact he had throughout his entanglement with the criminal justice system and what it meant for his life. I don't think we always thought about that as we are now, but we're evolving and we're changing, and that's why tonight is, a continuation of that, and I think a positive step. But I'll be quiet and I'll be back.
And I want to thank you for that. I mean, and I just want to say that across the nation, across the world, we are, as a society, embracing more and more the neuroscience and the understanding behind trauma and how it presents. And as a society, we just have not lived into the experience of trauma, what certain situations do to us. So thank you.
We have one more on Zoom, Juan Ramos. Mr.
Hi,
Ramos?
everyone. Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Hello?
We can hear you.
I just want to say, number one, I appreciate the effort. We have some great officers in our community that we work with. But I also have to look at the other side of the coin. One, as a person who's been victimized by a police officer, a person who's had a child victimized by a police officer. And my issue is this. We often hear training is being increased, enhanced, and intentional within the department. However, we've been hearing the same rhetoric for decades, and we still come up with more of the same. What is the NYPD prepared to do to deconstruct internal mechanisms that keep the status quo, and will they consider making disciplinary hearings public so we can see how officers facing charges of abuse and authority are held accountable? In the same way that we all are when we do something wrong and we have to go to court.
Thank you.
Disciplinary hearings public, and again, centering on accountability, transparency and accountability.
And we have one more from Pedro, I hate mispronouncing folks' name, Moctezuma Jr., I hope I pronounced it correct, please forgive me. How is it that we have our police department answering calls over the radio for noise complaints and things that have nothing to do with policing? So that is from Brother Pedro. Any other ones on the floor that has a question? Otherwise, we will yield that time to give to Commissioner. You have one? Okay. Okay. Any more questions? Going once? That's it? All right now.
Okay, a lot of notes here. Try to put it into a coherent final wrap-up here. First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for coming tonight. I want to thank the people on Zoom that are participating. This is our 4th or 5th one. I think we're learning how to do it a little better each time, and we've probably talked the least tonight, and we've heard the most from you, so I think that's probably how it should work. And we now recap and take all these notes back home, and we'll add it together. And as Jennifer said, I think it was Jennifer said earlier, this is the beginning. And after these listening sessions, I keep using this term, it might be the wrong term, but it's meant to be a grassroots now. Police, advocates, community members, clergy, you at home, members that live in the community, I mean, everyone now rolling up sleeves and really doing the work. This is the open it up. The work has to be done. That last question was great because the last question said you've been talking about this forever and training, and if it doesn't really lead to anything. I would counter that a little bit and say, you know, we could point to a lot of things that the training has improved, whether it's reducing the use of force, reducing the civilian complaints. They're actually down pretty dramatically. There's a lot of positives, but we're here because we also know that there's negatives, and we have to work to that. So here is how I'll close up tonight. We've had a very tough year, no doubt. And when I look at my police department, your police department, I have almost 30 years. I grew up in Queens. I worked most of the time in the Bronx. I've been working since I was a kid, doing whatever. I love this police department, and I know what it's capable of. I also know what it's not perfect at. And we have made strides in the last 5 or 6 years, really under this administration, to do a lot of good. But we are far, far from done. We've cut the incarceration. Somebody said yesterday, hey, you keep saying you cut the incarceration. That was a lot of our work too. That was a community member and advocate, 100% right. But we've done it together, and we're not taking credit for anything. We got to a place where crime was never perfect, but awfully low historically last year, and then this year came. We know that we have a lot of work to do, but what we have to make sure is really all of these notes say the same thing. We have to do it together. We have to do it collaboratively. I'm really curious about your comment, sir, because I've spoke to Zoom meetings and been present at many churches, and then COVID kind of hit. But we've done it, and Juanita and Chauncey Parker and Jeff Madry have done it with me. We've done it virtually since, but yet I didn't know you, right? But I have met with many, many clergy members, and I've said two things consistently since day one. We don't use the clergy enough, and we got to really take neighborhood policing to the next level and concentrate on youth. And then as Juanita said last night, and then COVID hit. And it certainly slowed us down. But anything that we do to get to where we want to be has to be done with the community. It has to be done where the community wants to do it, believes they're a part of it, respects the police. And we also need, on the police side, we got to make sure all officers realize that, what they mean to the community. If we have a situation where cops pull up on a block, I said this yesterday, well, people are fearful of the police, we have a lot of work to do. When you talk about all the questions that came about, they want to see more cops, that's exactly what we want to see. Judy would love to see. Judy would throw the cops out there if I would give her the cops. Right now, they're not all there. You know, we have some challenges on attrition and budgetary things that the whole city has to face. So we are doing everything we can to put more cops on the street. But we will absolutely double down on our commitment to neighborhood policing. I put extra youth officers in every command because to me that is 100% fighting crime, investing in youth. No kid wants to join a gang, right? What kid wants to get into trouble? They need things to do. I'm incredibly proud of a lot of the work that we've already done. We're taking kids on fishing trips. We're bringing kids into Explorers. We're bringing kids and tutoring them, mentoring them, creating leagues in Queens. And then when the kid doesn't show up at school, we say, no, you can't play football. You're out of the league. You didn't show up to school. And then we say, you know what? We'll give you a second chance. You're going to show up to school? Yes. Their grades went up. Amazing stories, but so much more that we have to do. Sir, you talked about unequal treatment and preferential treatment. Perception is reality. I'm not going to stand here and say that it's never happened. I'm certainly not going to stand here and say that there's never been a racist cop. There's been a racist, you name it. And there's racism in every segment of this society. That's not at odds with the fact that I'm awfully proud of this police department. And I think that the vast majority of men and women that come to work every day come to work with good intentions and want to help people. But training, discipline, Jennifer, transparency, you got to call it when you see it, and you got to take action. And you got to weed people out that don't deserve to put on that uniform and honor the city with their service of a shield. I think we got to get back to a little bit of people in this room are complimenting neighborhood policing, they're complimenting community affairs, they're complimenting youth officers. What we need to do is we need every single police officer to feel that same connection and push that down even further, to have that philosophy of service, of connection, respect, permeate through. And that's not soft policing. We want to be hard on crime, and we want to be doing it with the community. And hard on crime, it doesn't mean locking people up and throwing away the key. I talked to a gentleman today, to 21 years, and for something that shouldn't have happened, and it did. And now he's kind of redevoted his life to helping people. That was this afternoon. So, balance, respect, finding that spot where we can continue to push down crime. We have so much work to do. And it's not just the police, and frankly, it's not just the community too. We got to build partnerships with our elected officials and see where we need help on this. Sensible help. So I'm not dodging your question with whether you want to talk about Williamsburg or Borough Park versus other areas. Earlier this year, we got pulled into the lovely world of social distancing, right? We were pretty adamant right from the start. Hey, this should be about educating people. This should be about helping people. And I still believe to this day, and my mind has never changed, the last thing people need when their loved ones are dying and they're sick and people are losing their jobs and businesses are going out of business, to be piling on and throwing summonses on them that frankly probably are never going to be paid anyway. It's about education. It's about correcting conditions. And we can do better at times in all parts of the city, but we got to be out there with people and pulling them along and not pounding on them. That's the lessons of stop, question, and frisk. That's the lessons of 400,000 arrests. We can do it differently. I would argue with you, and you can have a different opinion, and I respect your opinion. I think there's a lot less of that than you may think. I know that perception is out there vastly, but whether we've been going to Brownsville, Canarsie, Highbridge in the Bronx, or Borough Park, we've been doing the same message. Not summonses, not arrests. Let's get compliance. And we're doing it with the help of many other agencies who are doing some really good work. We're utilizing school safety agents to do it, auxiliary officers to do it. Other agencies are doing a lot of good work on trying to get people through this terrible time that we're in, and do it without alienating people. We don't want to get to the other side of this, and now we've broken down trust that we're so desperately trying to build up. We also have to, though, and elected officials are right, when there's a time that people don't listen, we got to come in and issue summonses. I'm not saying that's not the case, but we are across the board treating people as if we can get to them. We can get to them with a message. We've handed out, Juanita, how many masks? It's probably in the millions by now across the city, as well as other agencies. Let me just see this list if there's any major thing. I'm actually getting yelled at by people that are texting me through Zoom right now that you didn't answer my questions. But that's friends, so I'm not worried about them. Assignment of cops, we talked about respect, systemic racism, the balance, money for community councils. I took your note. Bishop, the bishop left in the back. I was going to tell him if he's calling himself customarily late, I think that means he's on time because he's always late, right? So then he's on time. So you could tell him I said that. I want to thank everyone again for coming here, and hopefully this is the start. And sir, I will see you, I guess, in the 7-7 precinct on Saturday. Right? All right? Thank you.